because I think something that I don't believe in, or maybe do believe in, but I feel quite strongly about, is that I think right, okay, so let's talk from personal experience. I once had an architectural boss. So when I worked in practice more, I had a boss once who said to me and my co-worker, and actually my other co-worker was there, so there's about three of us, and we were sat in this office, and he came up to us and said, none of you are going to succeed unless all of you are obsessed with architecture and you make it your entire life. And it was all around this idea that one of my colleagues enjoyed going swimming and the other one enjoyed playing lacrosse. And I definitely, at the time, was not unbelievably obsessed with architecture. I still don't believe in this culture of, giving away your time for free, which, by the way, in the UK is very prevalent, that you're expected to work into the evenings at your job on site for free. So they don't pay you overtime. And it's very assumed, and there's a lot of pressure to do it, but it's entirely illegal. It's completely illegal. It's not allowed to be done, but they really press you into doing it. So within that conversation, yeah, my boss at the time said this to all of us. And it's never really left me how ridiculous that sounds. That is the most ridiculous, stupid thing I've ever heard anyone say. So the reason why that is, and maybe we'll talk about a stream I did before. So a stream I did before, I had actually I had three architectural research papers, and it was all about cemeteries. One was it was architectural history discussing Greek cemeteries and how cemeteries as we know them today are from really the Greeks invented it and made this concept and brought it into UK culture. However, there was also another one about general history, about ritual and the basis of importance of, respecting the dead. But then there was this architectural paper it was really funny. I might actually leave it in the chat if anyone wants it, but it was very, very funny in that it was from a university where the students had proposed this, how do I explain it? They basically proposed a concept for a new kind of cemetery. And this cemetery the idea was it was called the Machine, and it came with a list of things, and it was like every 5 years you must rotate your kind of pod or chamber, and it must become a burial ground, and you must submit to the machine times, and you must submit to it. And it was really, really utilitarian, but also it was very dominating and very aggressive. And these students were just kind of exploring an idea, and they proposed it in kind of almost like a thought piece, and it was very interesting to read. I found it very funny because, and the reason I bring it up is the difference between architectural writing and people deeply within architecture, especially historically, they are not connected to the human experience. Typically, there are people who are very connected, community based, and all these things, but mainstream is all about people solving a problem, and architects are the main leaders in this, and they will execute it because their idea is right. Maybe I'll do a whole do a whole discussion on Le Corbusier, because Le Corbusier is another absolutely incredible example of that, because he believed that, and if none of you have ever seen Le Corbusier, I apologise, but basically Le Corbusier believed that everything should be contained and that streets shouldn't exist anymore. So he believed that streets, as a basic concept, so walking through like think Parisian towns and Italian town centres where you're walking on this beautiful boulevard kind of strip, and all across either side there are these lovely shops and people are eating and drinking. He didn't believe in any of that. He thought that was completely useless. He believed that buildings should be contained units. So in his eyes, he believed in multiple high rises that would be stacked along the cityscape, and at the very top there would only be shops, cafes, supermarkets that were specifically for that building, and that's how it should be done. So you would never integrate with anyone other than within your building. And don't get me wrong, there's more context to that. So, for example, he was solving a massive housing crisis at the time. There was lots of filth, there was lots of poverty. And within that lens, that makes sense that he would believe that's a really good way of supporting people. However, if you take that out of context, That's a very dystopian view. I mean, there's the film, was it 2016? It was called High Rise, and that's based off of a book as well called High Rise, and it's exactly talking about how that doesn't work and how inhuman it is and how things don't work and blah blah blah. So when my boss at the time said that we should all be only living, breathing architecture, it's just not true. It just, if you take anything from this, just don't do that. You should be exploring life. You should be drinking in every perspective, conflict, every opposing view you can find of your own belief system. You should look for it. And you're not going to find that in a hyper privileged, hyper educated, male dominated, very white centric context. You're just not going to find it, because all of the voices for hundreds of thousands of years, not hundreds of thousands, sorry, thousands of years, have been one voice and one note. So you're not going to learn very much. You'll learn very much about specific things, but you should also, I would say, spend 50% of your time learning the absolute opposite of what you think. So find a culture that doesn't agree with you in any way. Find someone, like even on a base level, if you only eat with cutlery, you should experience, live, and try yourself eating only with your hands. And you will learn so much about yourself and about other people. And it's so important you do this research. And I just think if you keep your head in an architectural book and never leave like specific things like like Rowe or Le Corbusier or Frank Lloyd Wright, if that is your temple, you have a very limited and very dystopian view of architecture, because that's not how people live. That's how set people with one experience lived at the time. So I really think that maybe these streams will be quite difficult for people. So because then when I'm talking about, if we go all the way back, because I was making a point when I was going on my big rant, when I then say I'm thinking of bringing in herbalism and discussing